Alright, so we got this unit of Keisha ninjas here, and look at those stats. Pretty good, right? Now let's see what happens when I press this button. Plus 14 charge bonus and plus 5 melee attack while going invisible? Oh my god, that's broken. Hey, I'm Triple Z Hacker, and welcome back to more Total War Shogun 2. Now, I know you all love unit abilities in this game, so what's your favorite ability, you say? Comment below. Is it Yari Wall? War Cry? Rapid Volley? If you answered any of those abilities, you're wrong. The correct answer is... All jokes aside, as you might have guessed, in this video I will cover Shogun 2 base game abilities. This video is part 1 of the guide, and part 2 will be uploaded soon. In Shogun 2, abilities can be utilized by a unit or ship during battle. Whenever a unit is selected, these abilities can be found at the bottom left side of the screen, and can be activated, which grants a specific effect. For the video, I've set up chapters, so feel free to skip around as you like. Before I begin though, most of you watching this video are not subscribed according to my YouTube's analytics page. So please subscribe if you love Shogun 2 and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss part 2 of this guide. With that, let's begin. The first group of abilities I'm going to cover are general unit abilities. So as with most Total War games, your general is the most important unit on the battlefield, and Shogun 2 generals come with several important abilities. When selecting your general's unit on the battlefield, you should notice all of these abilities on the bottom left side, but you should also be aware of this big blue circle that surrounds your general. This is your general's aura, which is the general's area of influence. When using any of these general abilities, you need to be mindful of the units inside his aura because they will be the only units eligible to receive the effects from the general's abilities. Additionally, certain abilities in this guide have their own area of influence, so that ability's effect is only applied within that area. So again, whenever you're in battles, just be mindful of the general's radius, be mindful of radiuses of abilities. For instance, if we put on Stand and Fight, you can see this red circle here. Stand and Fight has a much larger radius than just the typical general's aura. Just keep the idea of an area of influence in mind throughout the rest of the guide as I cover the other abilities. Now, the first general ability I'm going to cover is Inspire. With this ability, generals can choose to inspire a single unit for a brief period of time, boosting their morale and greatly improving their marksmanship and melee skills. The ability has a cooldown of 1 minute and 59 seconds at the start of the battle, and whenever you do use it, the ability is active for a minute and receives a cooldown period of 4 minutes and 59 seconds until you can use the ability again, so be sure to use it wisely. With the following example, you can see what exactly the ability grants units. 15 increased accuracy, 10 increased reload speed, and 3 additional melee attack. The additional morale is not indicated by stats, but instead by the morale level of the unit itself, which is either displayed by the morale bar under the flag, or in the black pop-up that appears whenever you hover over the unit. This happens quite a lot with other abilities, so remember this throughout the guide. With Inspire, non-missile units receive only plus 3 melee attack as they don't have the other missile stats. Usually this ability is best used on one of your elite missile units, but generals can also inspire themselves, which can be helpful for certain situations too, especially in the campaign. In Avatar Conquest, leadership generals can reduce the ability's cooldown time, which is also helpful. The next general ability I'm going to cover is Rally. This ability enables the general to rally troops within an area of influence shown by the red circle. All non-routing units receive a morale boost, and it will also rally routing units, of course, as the name suggests. The morale boost also is indicated as how I mentioned earlier. This ability has a duration of a minute, and once it's been activated, a 2 minute and 59 second cooldown period begins, so again, use it at the right moment. The most important thing to consider when using this ability is making sure your routing units are within the area of influence. Another thing to mention is that the general unit itself also gives morale boost to units he's nearby, so even without rally, you can move your general unit over towards fleeing units to help bring them back into the battle. In campaign, the rally ability is your best friend and will save you numerous times. For multiplayer, it is best to use it as the main engagement is underway for the morale boost. Here in the following example, you can see I have several units routing, so I run my general over and activate the rally ability to bring them back. It's a very simple ability to use, and you'll have no trouble with it. The next ability is one of my favorites, Stand and Fight. This ability greatly increases the general's area of influence, further increasing his morale boost of units within his area, and increases their melee attack and firing rate. While activated, the general cannot use his other abilities and is immobile and vulnerable to attack. To be honest, he's not really that vulnerable to attack, as the general can defend well in this position, and even take a cav charge or two before routing. Still, you want to protect your general at all costs. Stand and Fight lasts for 45 seconds. You may only remove remove the effect after the time has passed. Here's just an example. You unclick, click, and then you can get back into stand and fight if you wish. And of course, getting into the position is just a quick little process of dismounting and running over. So again, it takes a little bit of time. It takes a second or two. And you want to be really careful about where you exactly place the stand and fight. You don't want to place the stand and fight obviously in a position that's going to compromise your general. While at the same time, you want it to be in a position that also is close enough to provide all the bonuses to your units. So again, it's a bit of a tricky concept to get at first, but over time, you'll be able to use stand and fight very effectively. Now, when stand and fight is active, the units within the general's aura receive +2 melee attack, +5 reload skill, and increased morale, which is indicated once again by the morale bar as I mentioned earlier. This ability is one of the best in the game, especially in campaign where these bonuses will be beneficial on the harder difficulties. Additionally, in multiplayer, stand and fight is a must for leadership generals. The next ability is really self-explanatory. It's called Regroup Position, and it pretty much does exactly what the name says. You click an area on the battlefield where you want your reinforcing or routing units to flee to, so they regroup position. Now, if you click outside the general's aura, then he will ride over to the area before placing down the marker. I typically don't use this ability as it generally isn't helpful for most situations for experienced players, but sometimes in campaign or for players who have trouble micromanaging their units and it's a very stressful situation where your whole army is routing, then it can be a very effective ability. Now with the following example, you can see whenever you click on the ability, you have the little marker, you move it around, you place it down somewhere, and of course the units eventually go over to that area. The next set of abilities are universal abilities, which are shared by all units in Shogun 2. There are only 2 universal abilities, Loose Formation and Guard Mode. Starting with Loose Formation, this ability does exactly what it says. When activated, it spreads individual soldiers out into a loose formation. This ability is helpful in reducing casualties when taking any type of missile fire. Also, it's best to put your bows into loose formation always when skirmishing with other units, especially other bows. Loose Formation does weaken the melee ability of the unit and the charge as well, so avoid melee engagements while in it. One example of loose formation being useful is actually with spear units, especially in multiplayer. The spears control a larger area and are like giant nets waiting to catch cav. Also, the wider the spear unit is, the more the cav has to outmaneuver them. The guard mode ability puts your troops on the defensive, meaning they won't chase after routing enemy units in a battle and hold their position. This ability, I think, can be used in a variety of situations. I typically don't use it too much, but it still is beneficial if you need to retain your formation in certain situations. For instance, when you're defending on the high ground and you don't want your troops to lose that terrain advantage by rushing out into the open, this is really helpful for, say, Yari Ashigaru and Yari Wall, or other frontline infantry units that you want to keep those gaps secure and you don't want the enemy cav units to rush through or anything like that. It's an ability that can be used in very specific situations. The next set of abilities are melee abilities, used solely by melee infantry units in Shogun 2. These abilities are some of the most iconic and powerful in the game. The first ability is both iconic, powerful, and probably the best in the game, and that is Yari Wall. This technique is used by Yari Ashigaru and Long Yari Ashigaru, which enables them to lock together and present their weapons in a single direction. It's pretty much a phalanx formation for those who love the Rome Total Wars. Whilst this ability is active, the unit moves and turns slower. Attacks made to the front of the wall are less effective, and frontal cav charges are useless. Attacks to the rear or the flank of the unit are far more damaging to the Ashigaru. Now, Yari Wall doesn't make any changes to the stats, and also the tight formation is very vulnerable to missile fire. But this ability gave Yari Ashigaru their nickname, Yari Amazing, and you cannot forget to use it in this game. Both in campaign and single player, this ability makes Yari Ashigaru extremely dangerous. Additionally, it's important to note that for this ability to be activated, it needs to be selected before the combat begins. If the Yari Ashigaru are already engaged in melee, then you cannot activate this ability until they are out of combat. Rapid Advance is the next melee ability I'm going to cover, and this ability is used exclusively by Yari Samurai and Date Bulletproof Samurai. The Rapid Advance ability enables a burst of speed and increases the violence of the charge, along with immunity to fatigue whilst the effect lasts. Once activated, the unit can use this ability for a short period of time, roughly 40 seconds, before it runs out, and then there is a cooldown of 2 minutes and 59 seconds until it can be used again. The ability grants, as I mentioned earlier, an increased speed bonus, but also +1 to charge bonus. The fatigue of the unit is indicated not by a stat, but by hovering over the unit itself and looking at the black pop-up box that appears. You can see there it says the word fresh, and this word could change based on the unit's fatigue level. Additionally, fatigue can also be indicated by a small circular icon that appears next to the unit's flag whenever the unit's fatigue is at a dangerous level. In multiplayer, rapid advance is extremely helpful in capturing key buildings quickly, as speed is essential in competitive matches. Also, Yari Samurai are pretty good at catching cav occasionally when using rapid advance. Again, it all depends on unit micromanagement. Yari Samurai having rapid advance makes him at least viable to use in certain situations. The next ability on this list is one of the rarest in the game, and that is Yari Square, which is occasionally called Spear Square sometimes, but it's used exclusively by Yari hero units to deflect attacks from cav units. Once activated, the unit forms a tight immobile square formation with spears presented. As you can see right here, it is a beautiful formation. Now this tight formation is helpful for morale, but it's actually very vulnerable to missile attacks, which is similar to Yari Wall. Even though this ability is only exclusive to Yari hero units, there is a mod that enables Yari Samurai to have this ability also. This ability changes nothing to stats and is, again, as I mentioned, an ability that you probably won't use much in this game. Regardless though, it's still a cool formation to see, and it would have been interesting if Yari Samurai got this ability in the base game. The next ability for this guide is another hero unit ability, and it is called Hold Firm. The ability Hold Firm is used by hero units to freeze morale and greatly increase defensive capabilities, not only for the hero unit itself, but also for the 3 units closest to them. This ability has a 59-second cooldown at the start of the battle, and once it's activated, the ability works for 30 seconds, and can only be used again after a 5-minute cooldown period, so use it wisely. Now this ability is one of the most powerful in the game. The only stat it changes is +3 melee defense to the unit using the ability and the 3 units closest to them within the ability's radius. Now, the unwavering morale, again, is indicated by the morale bar, but it's a freeze morale in that it fixes morale at a certain point, so the units will not waver, even if they're completely surrounded on all sides, which, again, it's a very broken ability in some regard. Now, its true power is on display usually in multiplayer, because with Veteran Yari Ashigaru, these units at rank 9 can receive the ability Hold Firm if you are in a Spear Specialization clan, and when they do get this rank 9 ability, these Yari Ashigaru can become extremely potent forces on the battlefield. The next ability is one of my favorite abilities too. It is called War Cry. This ability is used by all Warrior Monk units and hero units to strike fear into the hearts of their enemies. When activated, War Cry greatly lowers the morale, movement speed, and defensive capabilities of nearby enemy units. Even hitting Kisho ninjas are affected. At the start of the battle, War Cry has a 3-minute cooldown period. Once it is active, it's only for a brief period, about 45 seconds, and then it can only be activated once again after a 5-minute cooldown has ended. You'll tend to notice that sort of pattern with the cooldown period, activation period, and another cooldown period with all these abilities. Now, the loss of morale again is not indicated by a stat, but indicated by the morale bar. An example of this here is, for instance, a unit might change from concerned to frightened. Now for the actual stats, War Cry lowers the melee defense by 2. Multiple War Cry abilities do not stack when used at the same time by monks in the same area, so it's best to use the ability in a chain to keep the effect going for a longer period of time, or to use it in separate areas of the battlefield to affect a larger number of enemy units. War Cry is one of the best abilities in the game because morale means everything in Shogun 2 battles, and when used correctly, it can create a mass rout of enemy units. There is a relatively similar effect for naval battles, but that will be covered in part 2 of the guide. The next ability really needs no introduction, and it's one of the most iconic in the game, and that is... Used by Nodachi Samurai, the Banzai ability increases the speed and violence of their charge and melee attack while active. Additionally, they have unwavering morale for the duration of the effect. Banzai is active for a short period of time, about 45 seconds, and has a cooldown of 5 minutes until it can be used again. Now, the stats that Banzai grants is +3 melee attack, +8 to charge bonus, not to mention the increased speed and the unwavering morale. So again, it's a very, very powerful ability. Now, for those who love to play aggressively and go on the offensive, this ability is everything for you, and it makes, Nodachi Samurai what they are, Nodachis. And it helps them easily cut through enemy lines, and, the most important thing when using this ability is that you need to make sure you time it right with the charge. Another thing to keep in mind too, though, is that I've sometimes seen Banzai activated later in the engagement, sort of helps keep the Nodachi from routing in the battle, and it helps them pin down multiple enemy units. Again, with the unwavering morale, even if the Nodachis are surrounded completely by like 6 or 7 units, while Banzai is active, they're not going to break, which again is broken in some regards, but it's only for a short period of time. In multiplayer, this ability is devastating because Veteran Sword, Cav, and even Naginata units can be upgraded with the Banzai ability, so it has an immense effect on the battlefield. I personally love lone swords with Banzai in Avatar Conquest. The last set of abilities I'm going to cover for part 1 of this guide are ninja abilities, and there are 2, blinding grenades and stealth. Starting with blinding grenades. These grenades cause disorientation that affects the enemy's movement speed, missile accuracy, and ability to fight in melee. Once activated, there's only a short time available, about 10 seconds, to strike before the ability runs out. There's a cooldown of 3 minutes until it can be used again. Also, any unit hit by the grenades are affected, even your own, so you have to make sure that your ninjas are throwing at the enemy. The debuffs the units receive when getting hit by blinding grenades are as follows: -10 melee attack, and a decrease of morale level indicated by the morale bar. Additionally, missile units lose tons of accuracy. Here you can see a boat warrior monk unit getting hit by blinding grenades and going from 60 accuracy to 0. Now I think also with 0 accuracy though, they can still kill units, which is pretty crazy, but again, the effect only lasts for about 10 seconds. Blinding grenades actually have farther range than the regular grenades ninjas throw as well, so keep that in mind when using ninjas. This ability is extremely underrated like the ninjas themselves, and it can be really effective when used at the right time or in the right situation. Using it right as the front lines engage, or even whenever an enemy is charging your defensive position, or when you are going for a counter charge, would be most advantageous. The stealth ability is used by ninja to get very close to their targets without being spotted, enabling them to run while hidden and deliver a more violent charge and melee attack, regardless of whether they are seen. Like most abilities, it's only active for a brief time, about 45 seconds, and then has a cooldown of 3 minutes until you can activate it a second time. As you saw with the opening of this video, when stealth is active, ninjas receive the stats of +14 charge bonus and +5 melee attack, which is insane. Stealth is an excellent ability when used correctly, and as you can see here, it enables even Kisho ninjas to beat a Katana Samurai unit. Of course, it requires the right timing, and there's tons of variables when going into using ninjas. The other thing to keep in mind is that stealth enables ninjas to virtually travel anywhere on the battlefield undetected, which is really nice. Of course, they can also walk while hidden, so you can always save stealth for the right moment. In multiplayer, stealth is a valuable tool and makes ninjas extremely deadly. I myself have lost a battle or two due to some great ninja micromanagement by some great players. This unit abilities guide will continue with part 2, where I will cover missile unit abilities, cav abilities, and naval abilities. In Shogun 2, unit abilities are such a huge aspect of this game, and I really hope you guys found this first part of the guide informative and helpful. If you enjoy my content, please subscribe for more Shogun 2, and as always, take care you guys.